Picture yourself standing in a field. The sun is setting. The air smells like wet earth and pine needles. You hear something move in the trees behind you. Your heart rate spikes before your brain has processed a single thought. You spin around. Nothing there. That reaction, that electric, animal surge of fear, is one of the oldest things about you. It was built by millions of years of pressure. Pressure from things that wanted to eat you. And most of the time, in the story of life on this planet, that fear made sense. But what if the thing behind you was not a wolf? What if it was not a lion or a bear or any creature you would recognize today? What if, in a slightly different version of history, the thing that forged your fear response into something razor sharp was far older, far larger, and far more terrifying than anything still alive? What if humans and dinosaurs actually shared this world? This is not a fantasy question, it is a scientific one, and the answer stretches across time in ways that will completely reframe how you think about your own existence. Start with the numbers, not the vague TV documentary version of the numbers, the real ones. Non-avian dinosaurs ruled this planet for approximately 165 million years. 165 million years. For context, your entire human lineage, from the earliest upright walking ancestors to you, right now, spans somewhere between 6 and 7 million years. That means dinosaurs dominated Earth for roughly 25 times longer than the full duration of human evolution. They were not a blip, they were the world. Then, 66 million years ago, something ended them. A rock roughly 10 to 15 kilometers wide, traveling at approximately 20 kilometers per second, struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Physicist Luis Alvarez and his son, geologist Walter Alvarez, first proposed this impact theory in 1980 after discovering an unusual layer of iridium, an element rare on Earth but common in asteroids, embedded in rock strata from exactly that period. Their discovery changed science. It changed how we think about extinction. It changed how we understand the fragile thread that any species hangs from. That thread, for the dinosaurs, snapped. But your thread did not begin for another 66 million years. There is a gap between the last non-avian dinosaur and the first human so enormous that if you tried to walk it at a normal human pace, it would take over 1,000 years. The gap is not a hallway, it is an ocean. So the question becomes almost incomprehensible. What would it have meant for that ocean to close? What would it have meant for your ancestors, your actual biological ancestors, to exist at the same time as a Tyrannosaurus, a Triceratops, a Spinosaurus? What would that world have pressed you into becoming? Here is the first thing you need to understand. Human beings evolved under pressure. Every feature of your body and your brain was sculpted by threat. Your wide peripheral vision was shaped by predators approaching from the side. Your ability to run long distances was shaped by the need to either chase prey or flee danger. Your deep, almost painful need to belong to a group was shaped by the simple math that alone a human is fragile, but together a coordinated group of humans can outlast almost anything. Now imagine that pressure multiplied by a factor that simply does not exist in the modern world. A fully grown Tyrannosaurus rex stood approximately 4 meters tall at the hip and stretched up to 12 meters from snout to tail. It could exert a bite force of up to 8,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush bone completely. Paleontologist Kent Stevens, who mapped the visual fields of large theropod dinosaurs, found that the Tyrannosaurus had forward-facing eyes with significant binocular overlap, giving it depth perception comparable to a hawk. It was not the slow, tail-dragging movie monster you grew up watching. Evidence from trackways and bone structure suggests it could reach and sustain speeds that would have overtaken a running human over short distances. You would not have fought a Tyrannosaurus. Your ancestors could not have thrown spears at it the way they hunted mammoths. No formation, no fire, no noise would have reliably worked against a predator of that scale. There is simply no strategy in the early human behavioral toolkit that matches up against 12 meters of bone and muscle and instinct. So what would have happened instead? Humans would have adapted. That is what humans do. But the adaptations would have been radical, far beyond anything your modern body reflects. Think about how profoundly even existing large carnivores already reshape the behavior of everything around them. Gazelles on the African savanna have evolved an entire arsenal of responses: explosive speed, zigzag movement, synchronized group vigilance, layered alarm calls, specifically in response to lions and cheetahs. Primates in the Amazon on alter their foraging routes, sleep in precise tree configurations, and maintain constant acoustic awareness because of the predators that share their environment. These animals did not choose these behaviors. They were pressed into them over thousands of generations. Now scale that pressure up by an order of magnitude. If early humans had coexisted with large theropod dinosaurs, behavioral ecologists suggest the most likely outcome would have been extreme nocturnality. Most evidence points to large dinosaurs being active primarily during daylight hours. A small, fragile hominin that moved at night, using darkness as its primary defense, developing sharper low-light vision, building shelters in deep cave systems or underground dens, would have had a survivable niche. This is not pure speculation. Paleontologist David Hone has written extensively about the ecological niches available to small mammals during the Mesozoic era, noting that early mammals, your distant ancient relatives, were almost certainly nocturnal, precisely because the daytime world belonged to dinosaurs. Your own eye structure still carries that trace. Compared to many other mammals, human eyes are poorly adapted to peak daylight conditions relative to what photoreceptor biology could theoretically produce. Some researchers call this the nocturnal bottleneck, an evolutionary echo of millions of years spent living in the dark, hiding from something enormous. You already carry the shadow of the dinosaurs inside you, not as memory, not as myth, but as biology. Now consider what coexistence would have meant beyond just survival tactics. Intelligence itself would have been reshaped. The human brain is energetically expensive. It consumes roughly 20% of your body's total energy, while representing only about 2% of your body weight. Evolution does not maintain expensive structures unless they pay dividends. Your brain grew large because problem solving, memory, and social coordination gave your ancestors measurable survival advantages. But the problems they were solving involved tracking prey, reading weather, and managing relationships within a small band. Now imagine those same cognitive systems under pressure from an entirely different class of threat. Navigating a landscape containing apex predators the size of buildings would have demanded a different kind of intelligence. Spatial memory would have had to be sharper. Mental mapping of safe corridors, water sources, and escape routes would have been a matter of daily survival. The ability to read subtle environmental cues, the sudden silence of birds, a particular smell carried on the wind, the way the grass moves, would have been far more finely tuned than it is today. In a world with dinosaurs, the human brain might have been pushed towards something more intense, more paranoid in the clinical sense, more attuned to the environment in ways that modern humans have almost entirely lost. And then there is the other side of the ecosystem. Not every dinosaur was a predator. The Mesozoic world was dominated, in terms of sheer biomass, by enormous herbivores, Brachiosaurus, Ankylosaurus, Triceratops. These animals were not threats in the same way a theropod was, but they were not safe either. An adult Brachiosaurus could have weighed up to 60 metric tons. A Triceratops defending its young would have been as dangerous as any charging rhinoceros, only several times larger. Living in the same landscape as these animals would have meant constant spatial negotiation, reading their behavior, avoiding their movement corridors, learning the seasonal patterns of their migrations. Your ancestors who lived alongside elephants and hippos and Cape buffalo already developed sophisticated behavioral strategies for coexistence with dangerous megafauna. A world with dinosaurs would have demanded that same intelligence, applied at a scale no modern human can fully imagine. Now ask the deeper question underneath all of this. Not what would have happened, but what does it mean that it did not? The asteroid that struck 66 million years ago did not just kill the dinosaurs. It created the conditions in which you became possible. The extinction of non-avian dinosaurs opened a planet full of empty ecological niches. Small, nocturnal, warm-blooded mammals, your ancestors, stepped into those niches and began diversifying explosively in what scientists call an adaptive radiation. Within 10 million years of the extinction event, mammals had colonized every available habitat on Earth and begun the long evolutionary journey that would eventually produce primates, and then hominins, and then you. You are not merely a survivor of that event. You are a consequence of it. The asteroid did not accidentally clear a stage for you. It cleared a stage that sat empty for millions of years, and then the slow machinery of evolution filled it, one generation at a time, until something capable of standing upright and asking this question finally appeared. And here you are, standing in a field. The sun is setting. The air smells like wet earth and pine needles. Something moves in the trees behind you. Your heart rate spikes before your brain has processed a single thought. That reaction is ancient. It was built for a world older than language, older than fire, older than the first human handprint pressed into clay. The creature it was built to detect, something vast and scaled and impossibly fast, no longer exists. But your body has never stopped listening for it.